Hello traders, I hope you have had a great weekend or are enjoying a great weekend. So straight into the markets, and for my weekly review I want to start to ask myself the question, is there fear in this market or is there appetite for risk still? And so let's look at the safe havens. I'm starting off with gold this week, and here we have the gold on a weekly chart. We've run into the 200 EMA on the weekly and then we've just narrowly closed below. So I would expect the gold to come and retest this area here before we potentially see another leg up. Unless, of course, we can't break down any lower. There's huge support underneath there. So if by the end of this week we start to hold this, then I'll start to buy the dips and then see if we can push up to around about the 1475, 1500 area. So at the moment the gold is telling me that the markets are alright. If we look at the Nikkei, the weekly has just clung on to the 50 EMA. There's potentially a stopping bar. In other words, it's a reversed hammer, which could signify that although we came up into resistance and we sold, we did hold support. So the Nikkei is holding support. So what about the US markets? The US markets, the Dow is right in the apex. RSI is just above the midline. And so we had a seller's bar last week and we just clung on. But look, we're right on this 127 extension. And if we can't hold this, start breaking down here and then falling out this trend line, we could fall very hard and get a good 10 to 20% drop as we start to try and find levels somewhere on the way down here. Alright, we are very extended. We've had a massive run to the upside. A couple of pullbacks in that run were bought before another leg. So far we've had a drop, a retest of the highs and barely clinging on. So that's the Dow. The Nasdaq is just coming on to, that's the potential stopping bar as well, slightly better than the Nikkei. I mean, with these markets, if they're very bullish, then they do tend to move sideways until they come in contact with the trend line, in which case they'll either push up or fail. So every time this pushed up, touched the trend line, pushed up, touched the trend line, pushed up. We're just waiting to see what happens on this trend line support. So last week's lows are crucial. If we can't hold that, then we could just roll over. If you look at Elliott wave on Nasdaq, we have had 1, 2, 3 waves. So we are due an A, B, C, D wave. So we could, again, so if this Elliott wave works out, we're going to come back to test 3480, potentially bounce into April, May for that resistance, and then over the summer potentially start to see some of those areas. That's a scenario, right? That's just a scenario, nothing more at this stage. We are holding, but not doing anything convincing. S&Ps are probably the best of all the charts. Got a lot of financial services organisations in the S&Ps as opposed to techs in the Nasdaq and industrials in the Dow. But if you look at the DAX, that's not a bad. We didn't even come in contact with the 50 EMA. It's so strong and pushed up, but we didn't engulf the previous day's bar. But the FTSE is one of the. It's probably the weakest chart. Would you believe? It's the weakest chart out of all of those indices I've looked. Out of the DAX, German DAX, Japanese Nikkei, and the 3 main indices in the US, the FTSE is the weakest at the moment. That's potentially, we've come up to this 23.6 and failed, closed under the 50 EMA. We break this support 6,500, and we could start to come down to 6,200, 60, just find these lower levels. But if the US can hold up, then I would expect that to drag the UK up. It's a sign that perhaps the markets are not keen on the budget, amongst other things, amongst all the other issues that are going on in the markets. Alright, so some holding patterns at the very best. Not bullish patterns, but holding patterns. That's all we've got, but with the gold selling off on the basis of the strength of the dollar. So with the strength of the dollar, I like this one. This has been on a big box down here from June last year until we finally broke out in November last year. We go back to retest the top of this box at 101.25 and we're holding. So I'm going to be a buyer of the US dollar yen early part of the week, around about the 102, 101.75 area, to see if that can start to push up to something up there at 105. Well, let's see, when the bottom of this box was 96.55 and the top of the box was 101.45. So it's just under a 500 point range. So if I get a pullback to 101.75, we could be looking at the 105, 106 area potentially. If the bottom of the box is 101.35, yeah, that's potentially one at the top of the box, 106. So I think that's, to me, it looks like a hammer on the 8.21 on the daily. In fact, let's pull the daily over now. Yeah, I would just close under the 50 MA just, but we've got this hammer-like bar with the 8.21 underneath it. You can see the strength of the dollar from the US dollar CAD and the weakness in the pound US and the euro US. So on the weekly, we're coming to a lot of support. We've got a hammer down here at 104.26 and very, very decent support down there at 104. So the resistance area is 105.60 on the pound US. So that's an area I'm looking at to short, and that is down to your decision making to see if that is something that you want to do as well. The Euro US has engulfed the previous week's bar, so last week's open was 103.880. That may short from that area there, it may not. Disclaimer, disclaimer, disclaimer. Pound Aussie dollar. We've closed underneath that 61.8 fib area. The last week's lows was 183. So I would suggest that may drop from 183 to around about 180 at least, possibly lower. We just got extended. We just got, it's a potential bull flag. So then a bull flag here, pull right down to the 200 EMA, ran up. So 50% level, 179 is a potential area for that to pull down to before the 50 EMA can creep along and potentially come down in contact with it at some stage and then potentially shoot up. So 3 weeks of selling, we've got potential for further downside. Right, let's look at some commodities. The oil has got a hammer on the 50% weekly. I would suggest we may see a retest of 99, possibly lower. The main support there is 98.50 area, 98.30, 98.50. So we may drop back onto that 50 MA and drop back into that hammer bar before pushing up for 104, 105. And copper's an interesting one here. We've got, it's had quite a sell, so we consolidated along here underneath all this resistance. The highs were sold into. We broke down that support, but we've come into, we've got a hammer-like bar with low RSI. I think it will drift lower. I suspect that will drift lower. It can't close above the 80 MA until we get to around 2750 area, but I'm not taking a trade in that at this stage. And that is cocoa. For some reason, not giving me a clear chart on the cocoa. Let's look at corn. I've got an alarm out for 460 on that. Let's see if that can come and retest 460. That is had a good run. 670 is the potential pullback area in that one. And Arabica coffee is having a massive run to the upside. The real start coming into contact with 50 MA 156, which is massive support. So one coffee could come as low as 156. We will need to just stand aside. Okay, I'm going to do a separate stock video. Done a lot of work on stocks, so let's see how that one is going to work out. And if you want to come on the stock video, then let me know. Otherwise, I will keep this video nice and short. The Traders Round Table tomorrow night is going to be on 10 hot tips on how to day trade like a professional. Now these are the latest events. So 24th of March is Traders Round Table 10 hot tips on how to trade like a professional. On the 26th of March, it's how to become a trader if you are a beginner. We'll talk about how to start your journey towards trading. Then we've got a foundation course on the 5th of April and trading stocks on the 12th. And we've got trading Forex on the 15th of April. And there will be, I'm going to add to that a live trading day. We're going to get together and we're going to go through a whole trading day together through the Euro session and the US session and look to get at least 30 points per session, minimum 30 points per session. Okay, so watch out for the stocks video. Let me know if you want to get on that, if you're not already on that. Otherwise, see you at, I'll be in the room late US session, so I'm going to wait till the US session opens and start to have a look at the market later on. Otherwise I will stay out of it. Okay, thanks, and goodbye for now. Thanks for listening.